Hey! Hi! How you doing? This is the Gamertron, and welcome back to the Gamertron Show, and this has been a long time coming. My top 10 favorite video game boss battles video was my second ever countdown video ever. It's a video I remember fondly of, and I spent so much time and put so much work into making 4 years ago. My oh my, how time flies. I think it's safe to say I'm a much better video content creator than I was all those years ago. And now it's time to revisit and remake this classic countdown video concept. Video game boss battles. It's been a long time since my original top 10 favorite video game boss battles, and since then, I've played so many more awesome video games and fought so many more awesome bosses in video games. Boss battles are easily the highlights of any and all video games. They represent a test of skill, a major challenge to overcome, an epic confrontation in the story of the game, and so much more. Boss battles in video games usually contain the best visuals, the best design, the best gameplay, the best music. Boss battles can be an embodiment of the best a video game has to offer. And now, I'd like to share with all of you my updated top 10 favorite video game boss battles. These are the bosses that blew me away in terms of visuals, design, gameplay, music. The bosses I replay and battle over and over again because they're so much fun. And now, without further delay, I present to you all my top 10 favorite boss battles from video games.
This battle you have begun sits at the very heart of all creation.
Number 10, the Gordian from Lost Planet 2. The Gordian is the cover boy, or in this case, cover acrid for Lost Planet 2. Literally, he's on the cover. He's in all the screenshots and marketing material. He was the first boss revealed when Lost Planet 2 was, well, first revealed. He was the boss you got to fight in the original demo for Lost Planet 2. And in the PC version of Lost Planet 2, the Gordian boss battle is literally the benchmark, the graphics benchmark test for the game. The Gordian is Lost Planet 2, and the Lost Planet community loves the Gordian so much that fans decided to nickname him Sir Om Nom Nom. He's even got a plushie! He's got a plushie! Okay, so needless to say, the Gordian is a fairly popular and fairly iconic boss in the Lost Planet series. And there's a good reason for that. The creature sports an amphibian-like body, especially similar to that of a salamander. It moves around on 6 legs that can regenerate when severed, and it uses its heavy spiked tail to clobber opponents. It's also capable of producing electricity within its body that can be used to electrify its skin to shake off any clinging enemies, or be harnessed through its spines and horns to unleash a powerful area of effect attack. Its back is rigid by orange spines that will burst and release pools of thermal energy when damaged. These spikes can grow back to be damaged again, but only if the core inside the creature's body is damaged. Its cavernous, free-mandibled mouth opens to reveal free tongues that can be launched at high speed to catch or crush prey, similar to a frog. The Gordian can also instantly kill players unfortunate enough to get stepped on by the giant beast. As you can see, the Gordian has a variety of heavy damage dealing attacks and abilities. To make up for this, the Gordian also has a number of weaknesses. Of course, there's the giant glowing orange spines on its back, but also each of the glowing orange knees on its legs, which once damaged enough will sever a leg from the Gordian. And one of the absolute coolest and most badass features and mechanics this boss has is once you damage the Gordian enough, sever enough legs, the Gordian will fall to the ground injured, exposing its gaping mouth. You can then, through the mouth, as the game puts it, infiltrate the Gordian. That's right, you get to go inside of this massive alien monster and shoot at and damage its innards, its guts, for massive damage. But the Gordian does have some internal defenses, spawning some low-level minion acrid inside itself to swarm you. Once you've done enough damage inside the Gordian, or if you're just taking your sweet-ass time inside the big guy, he will eventually, and I'm not shitting you here, suck you in and poop you out from his tail. That's both gross and awesome at the same time. While I wouldn't call the Gordian a necessarily challenging boss, he's not very aggressive, he spends more time wandering around the arena than actually attacking you, he's not really a challenging boss battle. The Gordian is a boss battle you fight for the visuals and the fun factor. Despite the lack of aggression and the lack of challenge, the Gordian is a visually awesome creature, with a ton of different gameplay mechanics going on with his different attacks and weaknesses, the awesome feature and mechanic to infiltrate its body. Then there's the epic boss theme music that plays throughout the fight, very reminiscent of old giant monster movies, specifically Godzilla, to really give you that look and feel and that vibe of, well, fighting a giant monster, the thing that Lost Planet 2, the video game, is best at. There's also multiple ways to fight the Gordian. You don't need to infiltrate its body, it's not a requirement. You can just wail away at its weak points, grab some rocket launchers and barrage him with rockets, get inside a VS mech suit, and blast away with that, climb up around the Gordian's body, getting up and close with its weak points. The Gordian is actually a pretty replayable boss. The Gordian is just overall cool. It's a cool boss. It's got cool visuals, it's got cool gameplay. It's easy to see why the Gordian is the cover boy for Lost Planet 2 and a fan favorite of the Lost Planet community. And all of this is why Sir Omnomnom, I mean, the Gordian, is one of my favorite boss battles. Number 9. Sapientia from Bayonetta. Bayonetta is a video game full of awesome boss battles, with epic visual designs, epic music, and epic gameplay to accompany them. In the end, however, I had to go with one of the later game bosses, Sapientia. Unlike the other Angel boss battles in terms of character, Sapientia is more memorable in that regard, not just through the hijinks that ensue with him in cutscenes, but his overall arrogant personality. And then there's of course his incredible design, an amalgamation of influences, angels, dragons, knights, battleships. Sapientia is just an awesome looking boss, intimidating as hell through size alone. But this is Bayonetta, where you kick the ass of deities for fun, and this boss battle certainly is fun. Hell, it's fun in the ridiculous premise alone. As Bayonetta, you're surfing across the ocean surface on a piece of broken plane, having to move over to one of Sapientia's sides to attack his legs. His legs having these creepy glowing faces that serve as weak points. While attacking his legs, he will try to swipe at you with his claws, try to stomp you with one of the legs, fire missiles at you, and the faces themselves will start shooting out fireballs. Needless to say, you got a lot of attacks to keep your eye on, and dodging them at the right time to give you witch time to let you easily attack the weak points. However, every once in a while, Sapientia will dive underwater, then attempt to get you from below. You now have to pay attention to the environment, looking for ripples in the water, watching out for his giant fin piercing out of the water like a shark, and then trying to leap up and out of the water to bite you. Like most boss battles in Bayonetta, Sapientia's fight demands your attention and focus on everything the boss is throwing at you. Melee attacks, projectile attacks, your placement, your location in the boss arena. And this is all just the first phase of the fight. Once you've destroyed all the face weak points on his legs, you can use an Umbran Climax to summon a giant demon hair spider. Because, you know, This is Bayonetta. Sapientia will then attempt to flee. You must race up and use the Wicked Weave hands in order to steer Sapientia around back towards the demon. It's fun, intense, and ridiculous. This whole situation. A naked witch is standing on top of a giant mechanical angel monster, steering it with giant demon hair hands across the ocean into a giant demon hair spider. Because, you know, Bayonetta. It's also really important and really intense to get this stage of the fight right, steering Sapientia into the spider, because if you don't steer him in properly, the first phase resets and you gotta damage those legs all over again. But once you do steer Sapientia into the spider, it will bite off a part of his face and some armor, revealing a new weak point on his head. You now need to get right into Sapientia's face, fighting him quite literally head on. You'll need to watch out because Sapientia will be trying to hit you with his claws, often as well trying to bite or eat you. There's even the rare occasion he will attempt to body slam you. Needless to say, there's a lot of quick attacks and quick dodges required on the player's part, while being rewarded with witch time for some easy hits in. Once his health is low enough, Bayonetta will summon the giant spider again, and you'll need to steer the giant angel back to the demon again. After the big bug takes another bite out of the big lug, phase 3 of the fight begins. The angel is angered and creates a whirlpool. You'll be forced to surf down from the top of the whirlpool, while Sapientia transforms and a set of 4 tentacles with eyes at the ends of them emerge from his face. Because, you know, Bayonetta. The tentacles will then start firing freaking laser beams that you'll either have to jump over or continuously move to the side. You will eventually have surfed down near the head. Once here, you will need to once more attack the red orb on Sapientia's face, while he tries to claw at and bite you. After some time, he will blow you back to the top of the whirlpool to repeat the process again. And once you've finally depleted that giant angelic monstrosity's health bar, you are treated to an awesome and satisfying, or somewhat terrifying if you're an arachnophobe, a cutscene where the giant demon spider returns, this time in the whirlpool, bigger than ever, trapping Sapientia in a giant web while other giant demon spiders come to munch on him and tear him apart. Overall, Sapientia is just a great boss battle, with spectacular and over-the-top visuals. I mean, the premise alone for this boss is absolutely ridiculous, which makes it all the more entertaining. Each phase of the boss fight is very satisfying and different from one another, adding something new each phase. And the overall gameplay, the actual combat of this boss battle, it's very fast, frantic, and engaging. Playing as Bayonetta, you really do feel like you're kicking the ass of this giant angelic monstrosity, and it feels great, it looks great. Sapientia is just a great boss battle. Number 8. Beauvoir from Nier Automata. A large machine lifeform modeled after an opera singer, decorating herself and her boss arena with repurposed bodies of living androids, alongside an intense personality and a creepy obsession with being beautiful. Beauvoir is a boss that leaves quite the impression, not just through this boss's tragic and depressing backstory as a character, but also through its wonderfully creative visual design. We've all battled tons of different robots in tons of different video games, but none quite like Beauvoir. Through her story, character, striking visual design, and of course this is a video game, on top of all else, the excellent gameplay that comes along with this boss. After a creepy introduction, Beauvoir starts the fight by launching an area of effect or barrage that you have to dodge or let bounce over you, while you have to wait in time to get up close and land some attacks on her, while of course constantly firing away with your pod, chipping away damage at her. Beauvoir will also launch a homing missile barrage that you'll have to run away from. Afterwards, she'll launch a beam attack from the side of her base and will rotate. You'll have to keep pace or hop over the beams and leap attack her. Eventually, she'll start rotating around the arena, spewing fire, forcing you to stay active and airborne if you want to avoid damage. Eventually, she will stop and let off a series of ringed lasers that will increase and decrease in size. This is a bit of a timing game, and you'll want to avoid their spacing, stepping forward gradually until you can attack her again. After dealing enough damage, she'll turn around and go back back on the stage where she first revealed herself. She'll then initiate a burst that triggers a hacking minigame, introducing you to hacking in Nier Automata for the first time. After the hack, she'll begin to call down android corpses on crosses that will shoot ringed energy at you. You'll have to destroy them all, while avoiding the energy waves she calls out to avoid more hacking minigames. Hopping over them or dodging from side to side is best. After you've destroyed all the android corpse crosses, Beauvoir will make her way off the stage and back into the arena, where she will be completely vulnerable and defenseless for a time for you to really wail in on her and do a nice chunk of damage. That is until she begins to flail around, and then transform. A monstrous apparatus will emerge from her undercarriage and will lunge at you, forcing you to dodge, keep your distance, and pick and choose your melee attacks from now on. Alongside all of the previous projectile attacks she's had before, she will be throwing at you in this final phase of the fight. At this point, it would be simply a sin for me not to mention the absolutely beautiful music, the awesome boss theme that plays while you're fighting Beauvoir. It really elevates this boss battle and makes it something special, memorable, and epic alongside the beautiful visuals and intense gameplay. And I really do mean intense. The amount of projectiles you have to avoid and dodge in this boss fight is maddening, really taking inspiration from the bullet hell 2D shooter side of Nier Automata, brilliantly and seamlessly meshing it together with the 3D hack and slash combat. Beauvoir honestly just checks all the boxes of what you look for in a great boss battle. A memorable character and story attached to the boss, beautiful, unique, and memorable visuals attached to the boss, and challenging and fun and of course memorable gameplay attached to the boss. And the cherry on top being the absolutely beautiful music that plays alongside the fight. What else can I say? Beauvoir is just a great boss battle.
My name is Monsoon, of the Winds of Destruction. Yeah, I guessed as much.
Number 7. Monsoon from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Few things I need to address before we continue. Yes, I know, the last 3 bosses on this countdown were from video games developed by Platinum Games. I can't help it, Platinum makes great video games and they know how to make great boss battles. Adding on to that, picking just one boss from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance was a challenge in and of itself. Every boss in this game is freaking awesome, but eventually I had to settle with my favorite and which one was the most challenging and most fun to play for me. So I ended up having to go with Monsoon, a misanthrope, a nihilist, a cyborg ninja, and one of the high-ranking members of the Desperado Mercenaries. Before the boss battle even begins, you're treated to this long cutscene introducing Monsoon, alongside a spectacular intro showing off his gimmick and unique ability and appearance, showing off how he's capable of magnetically dislocating his entire body. This gimmick, this ability, this concept is just so cool in and of itself, and so well suited to the type of game Revengeance is. What with methodically cutting up dudes to pieces with a sword, Monsoon just has a memorable and cool character in terms of personality and is simply spectacular character design. After the lengthy cutscene where Monsoon rags on Raiden for his moral compass, killing, and yes of course, memes.
Memes. Now there's a pretty meme. Exquisite. How about full of shit? Is that a meme?
For the first time in the game, we are introduced to Jack the Ripper mode, and Raiden as a character embraces his homicidal Jack the Ripper persona. And with that, the boss fight begins and the kick-ass music starts playing. Monsoon has a variety of different attacks and abilities that he can use anytime he wants and as many times as he wants. There's no strict move pattern with Monsoon, adding a lot of replayability to this boss fight as you never know what move he's gonna do next. You have to learn his different attacks and abilities individually and prepare for when he decides to use them. For the most part in the first phase of the fight though, Monsoon is just going to be barraging you with a quick succession of melee attacks. Parrying and blocking is absolutely essential in this boss fight. Hell, the vast majority of the boss fight is just timing your blocks and parries, and doing it consistently. Quite intense, quite challenging. Monsoon will come at you with fast melee attacks from his sides, alongside jumping into the air to do a lunge attack, kicking you into the air only to jump up and slam you back down into the ground, and the rare occasion he'll perform a special special grab attack, pinning you to the ground and stabbing you multiple times with his size. On top of all that, Monsoon has a supply of red phosphorus grenades, which he uses to disorient the player, hiding himself in the smoke and then attacking from multiple directions. And he likes to use this attack a lot. So get ready to time your blocks and parries. However, in this first phase of the fight, Monsoon is completely vulnerable, and while he's wailing on you with attacks, you can do the same to him. Eventually, after doing enough damage, Monsoon will jump on top of one of the large columns surrounding the arena, and start using his magnetic powers to pick up and throw large vehicles at you, which you'll have to aim at, time, and cut into pieces in blade mode. And as the fight progresses, Monsoon will from time to time keep jumping up onto those columns, and each time throw more and more vehicles at you, giving you more to cut in blade mode. But after the first batch of vehicles he throws at you, phase 2 of the fight begins, and Monsoon can now activate this magnetic aura that makes him invulnerable from your blade attacks, as his body will literally break up into pieces to avoid your sword swipes. It's a badass looking animation. Monsoon, alongside all of his attacks from the first phase, adds a few more into the mix, really making use of his magnetic dislocating body, as he will start hurling pieces of his body towards you as projectiles, turn into kind of a tornado of body parts, and throw himself at you multiple times, alongside having his arms and legs start attacking you individually. Needless to say, a lot more blocking and parrying is required on the player's part. To get him out of this invulnerable state, you either have to perform a successful parry up close on him, stunning him, giving you a chance to use blade mode and hit a weak point on his head, or use EMP grenades that will stun him and take him out of the invulnerable state. After enough damage, Monsoon will jump onto the nearby building and perform his Lawrence Force attack, where he smooshes up a bunch of vehicles and debris together to create this giant spinning ball of death that he'll throw at you in the arena. Explosive barrels also fall off of the projectile while it's spinning at you. You can either try and parry this giant attack, or run from side to side of the arena in an attempt to dodge the massive attack and the explosive barrels that come along with it. After that, stage 3 of the fight begins, and then the vocals kick in.
I have won this!
I cannot express enough how much the music adds to this fight. I mean, the premise behind this fight, two cyborg ninjas going at it, and the plot, the story behind this fight, is awesome in and of itself, and then there's the spectacular gameplay that constantly keeps the player engaged in the fight, as Monsoon throws this variety of attacks at you that you either have to block, parry, or dodge. But that music, oh, that music, just really gets the adrenaline going. Stage 3 of the fight is much like Stage 2. Eventually, after more parrying, chopping up more vehicles getting thrown at you, and surviving another go at Lawrence Force, the boss fight ends with an actually pretty epic quick-time event, where Monsoon lifts a stone pillar out of the ground in an attempt to crush you, and finishing off Monsoon in blade mode at the very end. Damn, I don't know what else to say. Monsoon is just an awesome boss fight. It challenges the player with their skill at the game, it introduces a cool new villain character into the game, it shows this simply awesome and very creative character design, and really kick-ass music for the boss theme. Monsoon is just a really solid, overall, very well-made boss battle.
Ha! Seems I've been fooled again. She will pay for this, sooner or later. She will pay! You never should have meddled with her!
Number 6. Detlef from The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Blood and Wine. Almost the entirety of the main story quest for the Blood and Wine expansion for The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt focuses around finding and stopping Detlef, a very troubled, very dangerous, and very powerful high vampire. The boss fight itself has a lot going for it. First off, with an awesome introductory cutscene, seeing your vampiric mate Regis go toe-to-toe one-to-one with Detlef in some epic vampire-on-vampire action. What? No, not that kind of vampire-on-vampire action. The other kind. The more murdery kind. A real nice addition to this boss fight is after the awesome fight cutscene at the beginning. The player is actually given time to prepare for the upcoming battle with Detlef. So if you want to, before you actually fight the vampire, you can apply some oils to your sword, maybe change out and customize weapons and armor, drink some potions, switch out your character abilities and upgrades. It's very nice that before the fight actually begins, you're given time to pre-prepare. Not a lot of video games and not a lot of boss battles do that. It's a nice little added thing. After another awesome cutscene with Geralt and Regis battling against Detlef, eventually you and Detlef go at it one-on-one. The first phase of the boss fight is easy and simple enough. You fight Detlef in his standard vampire form. However, unlike other humanoid enemies and bosses in The Witcher 3, Detlef is fast. Really fast. Timing your dodges, rolls, blocks, parries, and your Qun shield magic is essential for surviving his aggressive and constant melee swipe attacks with his claws, and requires complete focus from the player, as Detlef will at times teleport behind you or from side to side in order to get some hits in. However, Detlef's first phase doesn't take too long, and after dealing enough damage, phase 2 of the fight begins.
Start praying now.
Enraged and injured, Detlef transforms into his monstrous vampiric final form. And this is a real vampire, not one of those fake wimpy vampires. Detlef's final form is what I look for in a badass, monstrous, blood-sucking beast. A true goddamn vampire. And Detlef's new attacks match his new menacing and monstrous form. In the second phase, Detlef will now swoop down to attack the player. You'll either have to time your dodge at just the right moment before he strikes, or use that moment before he strikes to attack him with magic or a bomb, having him fall to the ground and stunned for a few vital seconds for you to deal some extra damage in. Detlef's second phase is also where and when he will perform his most powerful and most infamous attack, his Bat Swarm attack, where Detlef summons a cloud of bats and hurls them at you at high speeds. If hit by this attack, the player will take massive damage or be one-shotted, so timing your dodge roll just right or running back and to the side of the arena is crucial for avoiding this massive attack. Finally, Detlef will slam into the ground attempting to crush you, but the player is notified about this early via an aura of blood that appears on the ground, giving you an opportunity to dodge before Detlef slams into the ground. When he does slam into the ground, he will build up a charged up area of effect attack nearby. However, while he's charging, he is vulnerable for you to land in some damage, and then hopefully dash away before he does the area of effect attack. So the second phase of the fight consists of you dodging his swoops from the air, his slams into the ground, and the swarm of bats he launches at you. But while he's performing all these attacks simultaneously, Detlef is summoning blood traps all around the boss arena that you can see but can accidentally walk into, step onto, making you trapped and stunned for a few seconds, giving him the opportunity to perform one of his free attacks while you're helpless and vulnerable. I really enjoy the second phase of this boss fight. Much more than the first phase, it really engages and forces the player to focus and time everything, their attacks, their dodges, and always keeping their eye on Detlef to see which attack he's going to perform next while watching the floor of the boss arena to make sure they don't step on a blood trap. Really good design, really good mechanics, really intense gameplay. However, once you do enough damage to Detlef, stage 3 of the fight begins. In another awesome cutscene, Geralt cuts off Detlef's wings, grounding him. But then Detlef bites Geralt, causing Geralt to hallucinate, trapping Geralt in this bloody nightmare dimension that Detlef has created, with a giant beating bloody heart above. Detlef now summoning these bloody doppelgangers to fight you and protect these blood pulsing organs charging the heart. Timing is everything in this third stage, as you now have to time when to block and dodge Detlef's blood clone that will be aggressively coming after you. You can choose to try and ignore the clone and go straight for the organs, trying to avoid his attacks while you attack the organs, or defeat the clone, giving you some free time to attack the organs undisturbed until the blood clone is regenerated, and the blood clone will keep coming back, keep regenerating until you destroy all the organs. But once you do destroy all the organs, an injured Detlef bursts out of the heart with little to no health left, with all that's left to the player to just run up to Detlef and deliver the coup de grace. This is just a great overall boss fight, with 3 memorable, distinct, challenging, and fun unique boss stages, excellent story build-up and characterization of the boss leading up to the actual fight, awesome action action-packed cutscenes, beautiful visuals, a gruesome, horrific, monstrous, and badass design for Detlef's beast form, a variety of mechanics and attacks that the player has to memorize. This is just a great boss battle and one of, if not the best, vampire boss battles out there. Detlef is how you do a goddamn vampire right.
Well, let's get this over with, shall we?
Number 5. Alex Mercer from Prototype 2. Protagonist of the original Prototype, now the antagonist of Prototype 2. All of the marketing for the game was building up to this epic showdown between the new character Heller and the face of the franchise, Mercer himself. Hell, even most of the game's story is just building up to this inevitable final battle between Alex and James. The new guard versus the old guard. And boy, throughout the story of Prototype 2 does Heller have reason to hate Mercer, making the eventual boss battle and the rivalry between these two characters all the more satisfying. Hell, the premise alone for this boss fight is awesome. Two super-powered beings with awesome shape-shifting abilities hell-bent on killing one another, while the actual boss battle itself is pretty great. Alex Mercer, as you would hope and expect, starts using all of his signature superpowers, with each phase of the boss battle focusing on a different power. The first phase has Alex using his blade, second phase his whip, and third phase his hammer fists, utilizing the same attacks and abilities you have. However, depending on what power Alex Mercer is using, you will have to use a different power to counter his, as using the same power as Alex will only have him countering you and reminding you that he's using that power.
I'm using that. Change it up, for God's sake.
He'll also use a variety of other attacks alongside the main powers, such as body sliding, creating rows of spikes out of the ground that you have to dodge, grabbing and throwing a helicopter at you, and summoning a group of flyers to dive bomb you that can only be killed by a Devastator attack. Also, every once in a while, Alex will perform a leaping heavy attack that you either have to block or dodge, and if you are successful in doing so, leaves Alex open to be grabbed and deal some heavy damage on. And I also just gotta mention the excellent and hilarious banter between Heller and Mercer.
Come on, Heller. You could be the grandfather of the new world.
Now I know you're just trying to make me mad.
Thanks for the ride.
And finally, the way you finish off Alex Mercer is just so goddamn badass, as Heller starts to quite literally cut off each of Alex's individual powers, to a point where Mercer is quite literally disarmed. I love this boss fight. It's just so cool. It looks cool, it feels cool. The build up to this fight was monumental between these two characters. And I personally find that Mercer's boss fight is just the right difficulty. Not too easy, not too hard. He tests your skills with your powers. He tests your skills at blocking and dodging, and provides a fitting and epic end to the Prototype series. I love the boss battle against Alex Mercer. This is how you have two super-powered beings duke it out. Now, when it came time for me to look back at the Dark Souls trilogy for my favorite Dark Souls boss to add to my top 10 favorite boss battles, it was quite the challenge in and of itself. Because the Dark Souls games are filled with just such great boss battles. How do I pick only one? Do I go back to my nostalgic, original favorite, Knight Artorias? Do I go with the classic duo, Ornstein and Smo? One of my other favorites, Black Dragon Calamite? And then there's Dark Souls 2 with the Ancient Dragon, the Pursuer, the Rotten. Oh, and then there's Dark Souls 3, and there's so many good bosses in Dark Souls 3. Do I go with one of the bosses from the Ring City, all of which are fantastic? And which one could I possibly pick from the base vanilla game? The Abyss Watchers? The Dancer of the Boreal Valley? The Nameless King? Who do I pick? So, after replaying all 3 of the Dark Souls games multiple times, I have finally come to a conclusion. My favorite boss from the Dark Souls trilogy. I ended up going with the boss that I had the most fun with, that I wanted to come back to and fight again over and over, that I found to be the perfect balance between challenging and fair. The boss I considered to be the most epic. The boss that I found represented Dark Souls the best. And it turns out the answer was staring at me the whole time. At the very end of Dark Souls 3, its final boss. Number 4. The Soul of Cinder from Dark Souls 3. Everything about this boss is epic. The backstory and lore, the visuals, the character design, the beautiful boss arena and environment you fight him in, the intense gameplay with a variety of mechanics to learn, and that music, oh my god, that music! Some of the best and most fitting boss theme music ever. So beautiful, so epic. The Soul of Cinder as a boss battle, as the final boss of Dark Souls 3, is a love letter to Dark Souls fans everywhere, especially through its backstory and lore. The Soul of Cinder is an amalgamation and a representation, an avatar, if you will, of all previous Lords of Cinders, Ashen Ones, and Chosen Undead, including the late, great, and original Lord Gwyn, the previous final boss of the first Dark Souls. This boss battle is a creation of the player's actions in the previous Dark Souls games. It adds so much weight and depth to this battle knowing that. Fighting the Soul of Cinder gives you this overwhelming feeling that this is it. This is the end. The end of Dark Souls. It's all been building up to this fight. And then there's the actual gameplay of the boss battle, which is simply excellent and meticulously detailed. There are 2 phases to this fight. During the first phase, the Soul of Cinder will alternate through 4 various movesets during the fight, similar to that of real builds from Dark Souls players. Its first moveset consists of standard melee sword swings and thrusts. Its second involves the use of soul sorceries such as Crystal Soul Mass and Crystal Soul Spear, basically a mage moveset. Its third moveset involves the use of pyromancy such as Power Within and Great Fireball, in addition to the use of a curved sword style, actually capable of parrying the player and using acrobatic dodges to avoid your attacks. Its fourth moveset involves a spear weapon and using miracles such as Wrath of the Gods and Heal. Fighting the Soul of Cinder for the very first time is a real learning experience, more so than that of other boss battles where you just have to learn their one movesets and different patterns of attack, whereas the Soul of Cinder will switch to 4 different movesets, 4 different basically player builds on the fly, and sometimes even combining the movesets, usually combining the soul sorceries from the mage moveset with all the other movesets. It is very satisfying and very challenging learning and avoiding all of the varying attacks and abilities from the Soul of Cinder in its first phase. But after completely depleting the Soul of Cinder's health bar, defeating the Soul of Cinder's first phase will cause it to regenerate all of its HP with an AoE attack followed by an aerial slash, moving on to Phase 2. For Phase 2, the Soul of Cinder switches to a greatsword and becomes far more aggressive. In addition to all of that, if you pay close attention to his new moves and abilities during Phase 2, and pay close attention to the music, you'll come to realize that yes indeed, you are fighting a reincarnation of Lord Gwyn, the final boss of the very first Dark Souls, adopting many of Gwyn's original attacks, with huge sweeping sword strikes, throwing bolts of lightning at you in a variety of ways, and attempting to grab you for massive damage. This boss battle is just simply fan-friggin-tastic. There's no other way to put it. Everything about it is honestly perfect. The story behind the boss, the gorgeous, haunting, and just breathtaking boss arena and location you fight him in, the actual design of the Soul of Cinder, with his epic and detailed armor design, and the haunting way the flames and embers flow off him, to the actual gameplay, which is challenging but fair and filled with a variety of mechanics to learn and overcome, using skill sets, moves, abilities, attacks that the player uses themselves, having to change your strategy for how you engage the boss on the fly, multiple times in a row. This fight truly tests your skill at timing, dodging, really testing your skills at the game. On top of just the nostalgia overload and the homage this boss makes towards the entirety of the Dark Souls franchise as a whole. The Soul of Cinder is Dark Souls.
Hear me, warrior. My power is unlimited. I will strip the living flesh from your body and devour your soul.
Enough talk! How about you?
Number 3, The Forgotten One, from Castlevania Lords of Shadow. The true final boss of Lords of Shadow, a super powerful demon who is actually responsible for the domino effect of tragic events that happen throughout the Lords of Shadow story. The demon is so powerful he surpasses the main antagonist of the series, the devil, Satan himself. And to top it all off, the Forgotten One is the reason Gabriel Belmont transforms into Dracula, making the Forgotten One one of, if not the most important boss fight in the Lords of Shadow games. The boss fight itself is long. This is one of the longest boss fights I've ever had to endure through, with a variety of different gameplay mechanics and scenarios to memorize and master. The entirety of the Forgotten One boss fight has you go through multiple stages that have you doing a variety of tasks, testing all your skills at the game, platforming, combat, puzzle solving, and quick time events. There's a lot to go through, so let's get started. You start off with some simple platforming while trying to avoid being spotted by the demon. You must then partake in platforming as fast as you can upwards to avoid the rising lava. You must then avoid being spotted by the Forgotten One again as he passes by. Soon after, you must jump from ledge to ledge, avoiding debris the demon is dropping down. The Forgotten One will then fall into the lava, forcing you to do some quick platforming in order to keep ahead of him so he doesn't spot you. Once you find a hiding spot, you shadow the demon once more and follow him up to begin the actual battle. The Forgotten One is invulnerable to all of your special items, forcing you to rely on melee attacks with your combat cross and the use of light and dark magic. The Forgotten One has several weak spots that you must attack and are exposed as the fight progresses, starting off with his leg and then his lower chest. The Forgotten One has a large variety of attacks that you must study carefully in order to see the tells he makes before each attack. Those attacks including weapon summoning massive weapons from darkness, including a chained mace, a pair of swords, a chained blade, all of which have close range and long ranged variants of attack. He'll also try to swipe you with his claws, perform a stomp with his feet. He'll jump in the air to slam into the ground, forcing you to watch the floor of the arena to see where his shadow is, telling you where he's gonna land. And finally, a super quick dash attack, which he also uses to quickly travel from one end of the arena to the other. As you can see, this boss has a wide array of attacks, but with enough skill and luck, all of these attacks are dodgeable. After doing enough damage to a weak spot, it will trigger a special attack from the Forgotten One, which you will have to use against him in order to trigger a quick time event to reveal another weak spot. The first special attack is simple enough. You must simply block and counter a blast of energy right back at the Forgotten One. The second one has you grab onto a massive rock that he throws at you, only to throw it right back at him, ending the first battle phase you have with the Forgotten One. Oh yeah, we're not done. The boss fight's not done yet. We still got 2 more stages to go. I told you this was a long multi-stage boss fight. why I love it so much. In the next stage of the fight, you must once again follow the Forgotten One, jumping from platform to platform while avoiding being spotted or falling into the lava. Eventually, you'll have to jump onto a pillar, which the demon will then carefully inspect, forcing you to move out of his sight. The Forgotten One will then grab the pillar and start using it as a battering ram to batter down the wall, while you have to hold on for dear life via QuickTime events. To this day, every time I replay this boss, this scene with the pillar has me feel like I'm playing a horror game. It's very intense. It's nerve-wrenching. After this, you are provided with a completely optional fight against some flaming skeletons. Past them is the second and final battle stage with the Forgotten One. His new weak points this time being his arm, his shoulder, and then his head. The boss's moveset is mostly the same from the first fight with him, but now adding a new weapon, missiles, giving you more attack patterns to learn and a lot more projectiles to dodge. The first of his new special attacks after doing enough damage to his weak points, the demon brings down 8 boulders, which he primes one at a time to explode. You must gauntlet punch a primed boulder straight at him. The second and final special attack has the Forgotten One launch free missiles at you. You must then pick up, aim, and throw all 3 right back at him. In the final stage, with his head being the weak spot, the Forgotten One's attack speed and frequency is greatly increased. So, as you can see, with everything I've just stated, this boss has a lot going for it. This is a long boss battle, but it just makes it all the more satisfying when you finally land that final blow. Next to that, the Forgotten One's actual character and personality in the cutscenes is presented as highly arrogant and boastful, having the player alongside the main character in the game itself, Gabriel Belmont, want to take down the Forgotten One. The boss's character design is also highly unique, having this stone, clay-like armor surrounding its body, but underneath, this kind of gooey, tentacle-covered insides. The Forgotten One is just a unique looking character and creature design. This boss fight overall is just really epic, with the varying different stages, the constant new attacks and mechanics that you need to learn. This boss is an excellent challenge and one of the most satisfying boss battles I've ever played. Despite being named the Forgotten One, I will never forget about this boss battle. Number 2, the Cyberdemon from Doom. It's the Cyberdemon from Doom. I really don't need to say anything else, but because you're here to watch a boss battles video, I'll humor you. After the Cyberdemon's epic entrance, the player, the Doomslayer, engages in a one-on-one duel with the demon in a large, closed arena on the UAC facility on Mars. The Cyberdemon has a massive amount of health, so be ready for a long fight of attrition. The Cyberdemon will use a random pattern of attacks, including using its rocket launcher arm to launch many small missiles at the player, and has the capability to charge up and shoot a massive and powerful laser, which you'll have to watch out for and get the timing of the charging up of the laser just right in order to quickly dodge it. The Cyberdemon also has an aerial bombardment weapon on its back, which you can use to bomb the entire arena, forcing you to watch the floor of the arena for the landing markers of the bombardment. But the Cyberdemon will still use its other attacks while the bombardment is going on, forcing you to focus on the Cyberdemon, what attack he's using, and the aerial bombardment that's going on. The Cyberdemon also has a dash charge attack, which he uses to quickly get from one end of the arena to another, or charge straight at you for some damage. On top of all this, the demon will fire some demonic energy sword slashes at you that you'll have to dodge, jumping over or under them. So the Cyberdemon has a good variety of attacks to throw at you, and with such a big health bar, you'll want to use your heavier weapons to deal the most efficient and effective DPS on the boss. So the rocket launcher, Gauss cannon, and minigun are highly recommended for this boss fight. However, if you're running low on ammo or health, getting a direct hit on the Cyberdemon with the BFG temporarily stuns the demon, while also having him drop health and ammo pickups, giving you time to heal, reload, and get in a little bit of free extra damage while he's stunned. After depleting the boss's health bar, you get to perform a glory kill where you rip out the Cyberdemon's power core, and are teleported to hell. Ha ha ha! Fooled you! This is a multi-staged boss battle, bitch! The first stage of the fight back on Mars? Oh, that was just the warm-up. Now you're in hell. Now the real fight begins. After reviving itself and fully regaining its health, stage 2 of the fight begins with the Cyberdemon showing off its new ability, the ability to create stone-pillared corridors, trapping you in a one-on-one lane with the Cyberdemon, giving you less room to dodge his attacks. In the second stage, the Cyberdemon will also fight more aggressively, decreasing time in between attacks, finishing attacks more quickly, and adding new attacks in the random pattern. The second and final stage of the Cyberdemon boss battle is epic, intense, challenging, and badass to say the least. And once you've depleted the big guy's health bar again, you get to finish off the fight with a satisfying, gory glory kill. The Cyberdemon is just a solid, simple, fun boss fight. No weak points, no quick time events, no summoning in minions. This is just a straight up one-on-one duel. Throughout most of Doom's single player campaign, you, the playable protagonist, the Doomslayer, have overcome every challenge, hordes upon hordes of demons, all of which you have effortlessly ripped and teared into. The Cyberdemon is the first boss battle in Doom, and it is the first time in the game where the Doomslayer is given a worthy opponent, a champion of the demons, part flesh, part machine, a horrific amalgamation of the UAC and hell. It's the Cyberdemon. It's the freaking Cyberdemon, one of the most iconic creatures in video games. And now, my second favorite boss battle of all time. I love this boss, especially for the gameplay, the simply fun and great feeling gameplay, but also for the awesome badass visuals, the awesome badass music. This is just an awesome badass boss battle. I love it. But there is one boss battle I love even more. However, before I reveal my number one favorite video game boss battle of all time, here is a quick recap of my other 9 favorite video game boss battles of all time. And my number one favorite video game boss battle is...
Take up arms, Arisen, for my kind do not heed the toothless. Survival lies in my defeat. Still my heart, and you stay the coming end.
Number 1, Grigory, the Dragon, from Dragon's Dogma. Grigory is the instigator of everything happening in the game. He's the antagonist. He's the title character of the game. He is the dragon in Dragon's Dogma. He is the sole motivator and purpose of playing Dragon's Dogma. To fight the dragon, to fight Grigory. The entire game, from beginning to end, is building up and hyping up the final battle with Grigory, fulfilling your destiny as the main playable protagonist, the Arisen, to slay the dragon that made you Arisen, the dragon that stole and ate your heart. This boss battle is so awesome, and I love it so much. There's so much to go over. So let's get started. Before the boss battle begins, you are given this simply awesome introductory cutscene of Grigory monologuing and offering the player a choice. So, do you sacrifice the character that you have romanced in the game to have the dragon leave and you be granted wealth and power? Or do you stand and fight and try to defeat the dragon and win back your heart? Well, we all came here for a boss battle, so of course! And so the battle begins with Grigory letting out a mighty roar, causing the interior you're in to start to collapse, forcing you to retreat. But the dragon gives chase, destroying the structure you are in the process. You must run from the dragon as it pursues you through a corridor, in this quick but intense chase sequence. After escaping from the corridor in the nick of time, Grigory will be trapped in the corridor temporarily, leaving his head exposed, giving you time to get some free strikes on his head. However, Grigory will still attempt to attack and defend himself, engulfing the chamber in his fire breath. He will eventually break free from the collapsed corridor, and Ven must have a small skirmish with Grigory in the small enclosed chamber, with the only way to damage him by striking his heart, exposing it as a weak point. After some time and damage, Grigory will smash out of the chamber, and then flying off through an opening, daring you to follow him. And you must now pursue him, leaving the temple, entering the ruins of a great city on the slopes of a mountain. The dragon then ambushes you from behind. The pursuit now takes place as you run across high bridges in the open leading to watchtowers, taking cover or dodging along the way as the dragon flies in to breathe fire on the bridge. Once you start towards the first tower, the dragon will attack again, collapsing the bridges in the process. After running to the first tower and taking temporary refuge, you traverse across a second set of elevated bridge walkways to the second tower. At the top of the tower, the fight with the dragon is resumed, as you must mount a ballista and fire a bolt at the dragon's heart. The dragon will then strafe and crash into the tower, and doing so you manage to grab onto the dragon's back as it flies into the sky. And now, in a unique gameplay set-piece segment, accompanied by spectacular visuals and equally spectacular music. After grabbing onto the dragon's tail, the dragon will fly with great speed towards the mountain summit. You must now climb forward on the dragon's back against the rush of wind towards its glowing weak spot. This whole sequence on the dragon's back is simply spectacular and heart-racing. I truly feel like I'm holding on for dear life and climbing up the back of this giant flying beast. This part of the boss battle is exhilarating and awesome and a visual spectacle. After striking the dragon's glowing weak point, you are launched from his back and begin falling through the air. And after quickly completing a quick time event before the dragon attempts to eat you mid-flight, this happens.
The hour for turning back is past. The world will have its answer. You or me. Death or life beyond.
And with all of that, the true boss battle begins. Grigory has several devastating attacks and abilities, including, but not limited to, Fire Breath, Fireballs, Stomp Attacks, Body Slams, a Sweeping Backhand, a Tail Whip, a Tail Sweep, a devastating Grab Attack where he'll grab you and smash you into the ground. He'll flap his wings hard, knocking back everyone with high force winds. He'll try to bite and ensnare you in his mouth. But on top of his Fire Breath attacks and his physical attacks, Grigory can also perform magic. For a short period of time, he'll remain immobile while he casts powerful spells, including Ice Magic, Lightning Magic, Fire Magic, and Light Magic. He can also grab one of your party members, and if they are not freed from his hand, he will cast a spell on them, temporarily putting them under his control and fighting you. Now, while you can do a bit of damage to Grigory attacking any of his body parts, Grigory's heart is his primary weak spot and must be exposed and struck in order to inflict significant damage. And after enough damage is dealt to Grigory, he will fly up and land on top of a mountain. where he will begin to rain down fireballs from above, forcing you to either shoot him with arrows, hit him with magic, or search for a ballista somewhere in the environment to mount and shoot at him while he's on top of the mountain. Eventually, he will fly off the mountain and start to fly around the battlefield. The only way to ground him again is to hit him with an arrow mid-flight, hit him with magic mid-flight, or hit him with one of the previously mentioned ballistas, having him crash back down into the ground. And while you and your party members can bring down Grigory's health to a measly 1%, Grigory cannot be defeated until the final blow is landed on Grigory's heart by the player. And god damn it, I just love this boss fight. This boss fight is fantastic. It's the perfect boss fight. The story and lore building up to this fight is fantastic. The cutscenes are awe-inspiring. The actual spoken dialogue and voice acting of the character Grigory the Dragon is phenomenal. His dialogue elevates the fight so much, and so does the music. The spectacular, epic, pulse-pounding, epic boss theme music that plays throughout the battle. And keep in mind, this is Dragon's Dogma with its excellent combat system, and the mechanic of actually being able to climb up and all over the boss. Then there's the huge amount of variety in this boss battle with the multiple stages. Then there's the amount of replayability with this boss, battling the dragon over and over again with different vocations, with different class builds, and different weapons, and different pawn party members, providing a whole other experience, depending if you brought knights, or mages, or archers, or if you are one. There's the huge amount of variety in Grigory's attacks and abilities. The fight is fun but fair, it's challenging, and Grigory can deal massive amounts of damage, but there are always tells to his attacks, time to dodge and evade. And then there's just the awesome feeling and satisfying gameplay of climbing up Grigory and striking him in his heart, or shooting him out of the sky. And of course, I gotta mention, he's a freaking dragon. I love dragons, I adore dragons, and Grigory is just such a cool, badass, awe-inspiring looking dragon. I absolutely adore this boss battle. I love this boss battle. It's a blast to play. It's so much fun to play. It's an epic event. It's a memorable experience. I could go on for hours telling you how much I love Grigory the Dragon, and how Grigory the Dragon from Dragon's Dogma is my favorite boss battle from video games of all time. Well, that's been a video. I want to thank each and every one of you for your patience. I know this video has been a long time coming. It's taken me so long to get this video done, and I hope you enjoy watching the video as much as I enjoyed making the video. Thank you so much for your love and support of my videos, of my channel. I'm so sorry this video took so long to make and finish and put out there, but it's finally done, and I can't tell you how happy I am about all of this. So I'm sure you guys know what's coming next. Please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below, hit the like button if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos from me, and if you want to help out and support me directly, there's always Patreon. Anyways guys, this has been a video, and I'll see you all later.